Hello gorgeous souls, how are you all doing today? I hope you're well. I'm sitting here with, I hope you didn't hear too many noises, but all my windows are open. There's a breeze coming through, it's gorgeous. I've opened the windows because the temperature inside the flat has got higher than the temperature outside. Anyway, enough of the heat. So, today's subject, and it's a bit of a tricky one. Today's subject is gifting, giving gifts. I've no doubt that we all feel the same, that we love to give gifts to our friends. I don't know how to be, maniac gifts of high expense, but, sometimes something like finding someone's favourite book from their childhood, you may find it and spend a couple of quid, but actually when you see your friend's face as they open that gift and they see their favourite book for the first time in 40 years or so, priceless, it's adorable. I love gifting. I also love receiving gifts, of course, who doesn't? But in a low spend or no spend year, it kinda can get a bit tricky. And you know what, even outside of a low spend or no spend year, it can get tricky, can't it? Because if you're anything like me, sorry, just lip smacked. If you're anything like me, you will have friends who are considerably better off than you. I mean, all my friends are better off than me these days. But even going back to my working days, there are friends who are better off than me, and they don't bat an eyelid, And this is why it's so tricky, because we don't want to make anything an issue and friendships, and it's all about being open and honest. But a friend might give me a gift that has cost her £100. It's beautiful, some bath stuff, but really expensive bath stuff. And then I have that thing of, hang on, I've left my water far side of the room. Then I have that thing of feeling like I need to buy her an equally expensive or fabulous present. But you see, £100 for her may be like pocket money. That £100 in my life equates to maybe £5. But if I buy a £5 present, I feel a bit like, oh God, that's awful. She spent all this money on me and I'm only spending 5 or 10 quid on her. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? We can't, that whole thing of keeping up with the Joneses, actually no, that's the wrong analogy, because keeping up with the Joneses is all about appearances and trying to have the best stuff to show off to the neighbours, and the neighbours show off back to you. I don't care about any of that stuff. But it can be awkward. It can be really awkward if you've got friends who are considerably better off than you. And, that can happen even within families. And we can get into that cycle, that kind of guilt cycle of thinking, now I need to spend on this person because she always spends on me. And we end up, and this is the really stupid thing, we end up getting into debt in order to buy gifts for someone who's got way more money than us. I mean, it's stupid, isn't it? It is stupid. But that's why I think this subject is one of the most awkward ones. I think apart from anything, none of us, I mean, I don't care, but in the UK, I don't know how it is in other countries, but we're a bit like, don't talk about money, don't talk about how much you earn or what your house is worth. No, that's all dirty talk. Don't talk about that. So I think that's one of the things that makes it awkward. But what I'm going to suggest, and I think this is really, really hard, but I think one of the things I'm going to suggest for us all this year is, and you know what, we've got a good excuse this year, thank goodness, that's a stupid thing to say. I was going to say thank goodness that we're in recession and the cost of living is going up and up and up. But what I mean is, we've got an excuse this year. In some ways, I should have done this video right at the beginning of the year so everyone's got time to implement it. Didn't happen, never mind. Both in terms of putting stuff aside and... Okay, I'm going to bite the bullet. I can't even do it because it's so hard to say. I think, yeah, it's going to be hard, but I think this might be one of those years, especially if you're having this low spend or no spend year, when think about all the people that you normally buy gifts for. Let's take Christmas, not birthdays, but let's take Christmas, because I think that's when most people do most of their buying and gifting, is to speak to all the people on your list and be really honest and brutal and say, you know what, look, I'm having a no spend year. Can we have a year where we agree to not buy gifts for each other? I want to spend time with you. That's the best gift, isn't it, with friends? The best gift from friends ever is time together. Can we spend time together but not do the whole gifting? And even with family, you know, let's not do Christmas presents this year, or you could even say, if that's too far a stretch, say, can we just all keep it to £5 or whatever your budget is? You might think £20 is okay. You know, if in the past you spent 50 quid, 100 quid on gifting, 20 quid would be a big pullback. For me, it would be saying 5 quid limit. Just talk to them, and if there's a bit of like, you can always say to them, look, you know, with this cost of living nonsense happening and the fuel bills, you know, it's going to be tight this year. I'm okay. I can pay my bills, I can pay my mortgage and my rent, but after those bills, I'm really not going to have anything left over. And rather than disappoint you on Christmas Day, let's chat about this now. I'm willing to bet that if you're brave enough to do that with your friends and family right now, that a lot of them will say, oh, I'm so glad you've suggested this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, I've been thinking the same. I don't want to go mad this Christmas. You know, I think a lot of people will appreciate if you get that ball rolling amongst your friends or family to say, let's do a no spend Christmas. And then, you know, going into next year, you might think, it depends on your financial situation, but you might think, actually, going forward, I really don't want to be doing this, spending money on sometimes tat that people don't even want. So let's just all agree to just stop this forever. And you know, one of the things that's really nice to be able to do for Christmas, my uncle does this for me every Christmas. My Christmas present from my uncle is always a donation in terms of like a spade or seeds or a watering can, but for someone in Africa, for example. So I never physically get anything. I don't gain from it, but someone in the world does, and that to me is a really beautiful thing. So maybe that's another thing you could agree with your friends, is to say, and family, this year, let's stop filling the world with junk. Let's either bring the price down that we spend on it, let's do a £5 cap, because then you've got to get really inventive. Or better still, instead of doing all this gifting to each other, let's make a donation to a charity on behalf of each other. I think it's really, really tricky, isn't it? Now, I've done this with all my friends years ago. It was kind of getting out of hand, because it was getting to the stage where all my kids had 2, 3, 4 kids in some cases, and I was spending hundreds of pounds at Christmas buying all their kids a present, buying them a present, buying them, and it's like, hang on, it's just me on my own. It gets silly. And I think that's another thing, this might be really hard, but Because this didn't happen when I was a kid. When I was a kid and it was my birthday, we didn't have a birthday party every year. We just didn't have birthday parties. I seem to remember when I was 10 and it was the end of my junior school time and it was my birthday, because my birthday's at the beginning of summer, beginning of July, so it's kind of the end of the school term. I was allowed to have my 2 best friends over for tea, and in a way it was kind of like a leaving thing as well, because they were both going on to different schools. It's like the last time I was going to see them, so my little besties, but all it was it was tea. We just sat down and had our tea. It was nice. There weren't presents. But these days it seems like kids are going to birthday parties every weekend, and the parents are having to do bouncy castles and this, that and the other, and circus acts and all the food, and every kid's got to bring a present and da-da-da. It's mad. Parents are spending a fortune on the party, and then all the other parents are spending a fortune on buying presents every weekend for some kid in the class that their kid is in. You know what? I would say have a get together with all the parents and say, enough, let's just stop this. You know, when your kid is 10, have a birthday party because they're going to be leaving school. Or when they're 13, have a birthday party because it's their first teen birthday. And when they're 16, maybe have another one because they're leaving school again. I honestly think that if we all talk to each other, mums at gates, grandmas at gates of school gates, and within families, whatever it is, if we all talk to each other and said, can we just kind of tone it down? I reckon a load of people would go, oh, thank you for saying it. Yes, let's tone it down. Let's do away with it all. Yeah, I think we'd all be surprised. But anyway, so let's say we are going to still gift some stuff to some people. One of the things I do is I've got my little, it's an old beer bottle. It's one of those kind of giant promotional beer bottles. And I put my 5p's and my pennies in it. I go through the change in my purse, and the neck of the bottle is quite narrow, so it fits a 20p, a 5p and a 1p. And I always take the slummy out of my purse. I just said slummy. That's a very Scouse word. Slummy, as in your change. Put them in my bottle. And then around about the end of November, I count it all up, and there's, you know, it's quite often it's about 100 quid that I haven't noticed through the year. So I think a penny jar is a great idea. Just keep putting your pennies in, and 5p's and 20p's, and then end of November, count it out, bank it, and say to yourself, this is just for Christmas presents. Yeah, that kind of helps. I think also having a list in your mind of who you would like to gift throughout the year can help, because then when you're out and about and you spot things that would be perfect for someone, grab it. I give gifts that come from charity shops. You wouldn't necessarily know it. You know, a brand new book in a charity shop, and let's say brand new it costs 15 quid, but in the charity shop it's 5 quid. If I see it, because I know in my mind who I buy presents for, I'll grab it. Even if it's 8 months before their birthday or 10 months before Christmas, whenever it is, I grab it. I've got a little shelf in one of my cupboards that's just for presents. So have in your mind, you know, have that conversation with friends and family, and hopefully within your friendship groups you can agree that from now on we're not doing gifting with each other. Having each other's company is enough. The best kind of gift is cooking a lovely meal for your friends and having them over. But if there are still people left that you need to gift for, make a mental note of them. Even do an actual physical note in your notebook that you keep in your bag that you carry around, so that when you're out and about and if you see something, especially in a charity shop, that's a bit more, you know, it's a bit cheaper, you can snaffle it up because you know, oh yeah, I do need to buy a present for that person. We don't need to buy a present for anyone, but you know what I mean. So yeah, do your penny jar, have your mental list. Oh, I've got so many notes. Oh, and the other thing is, if you're really organised, the one thing I don't want anyone to ever do is, for the big holiday seasons of, say, Easter, the summer holidays, if you're in America, Thanksgiving, but for all of us, most of us, should I say, sorry, Christmas, is to get into debt to put your Christmas on. Getting into debt for Christmas is crazy. You know what? It honestly just doesn't matter that much. When I think about my childhood, when I think back now, I honestly can't remember Christmases in a way that I can distinguish one from another. I can't remember pretty much any of the presents I ever got apart from my Snoopy money box. Oh, I loved that. And a badminton racket and a tennis racket one year. Otherwise, I just can't remember it. So buying these mountains of prezzies for your kids, they are not going to remember it. You are not a bad parent if you don't buy your kids mountains of presents. You're a bad parent if you ignore and don't give your kids love. Give your kids attention and love. That's the best present. Anyway, so if you don't get into debt over Christmas, if you still have a bit of money, of course, in the January sales. So, you know the penny jar? Maybe think of the penny jar as what you'll use in January and don't use it for Christmas. So then when the January sales happen, and there are bargains to be had, you can stock up on them, put them away in your present cupboard, maybe put a little post-it note on each thing to write down who you've bought it for. And if you've got your little notebook handy that's got your list of people that you buy Christmas presents for and birthday presents for, you can put a little tick next to the name to go, birthday, tick, done, got it in the sales, put it away. Because I think that also happens sometimes, doesn't it, is that we pick things up for people along the way, and then it comes to Christmas and we forget that we've got that, and we have a panic of like, oh, I've got to do my Christmas shopping. I can honestly say in my entire life, I've never done Christmas shopping. I've never had that day of going out and spending money at Christmas. I pick up bits. Anyway, so yeah, if you keep that little notebook, if you have bought stuff in January, you can put a tick next to that name so you don't forget you've already got sorted and then accidentally end up in a panic in December and buy another thing, if you see what I mean. So yeah, January sales, great. Penny jar, great. Talk to the family, agree a kind of a top price, or agree to not gift at all. But then let's say you are, sorry, I've made some notes here, so that's, excuse my head looking down. Let's say you are still going to agree to do some gifting and you are really broke. Think about things that you can do for free, or not quite free, but near enough free. So for example, if you're quite good at cooking, there are the obvious things about making jams and chutneys and ketchups and all those lovely foodie things that you can make for really very little money, especially if you've grown the fruits and the vegetables. So another thing to think about through the year is keep an eye out when you're in the charity shops, thrift shops in America. When you're out and about, keep an eye out for things like jars, pretty jars, or maybe the jar is a nice jar but it's not totally pretty, we can tart it up. Jars, tins, old tins, baskets you can turn into a hamper. So if you can pick up these bits and pieces, jars, tins and basketware through the year for not very much money at all, jumble sales, yard sales. I mean, sometimes you'll see these things for less than 50p, 25p at a jumble sale. If it's got a nice shape, if it's clean and in good order, grab it. Because if you make your own jams, chutneys, ketchups, that sort of thing, but you present them in a really pretty basket, And you might buy a few little bits and pieces on top, such as you might want to buy some ribbon, but just, you know, a short piece of ribbon to either make a bow or weave the ribbon around the top edge of the basket, just to zhuzh it up. With the jars, I think a lovely thing to do with jars, if it's a very simple glass jar, an old piece of lace or broad rayon glaze wrapped around it. Get your glue gun out or your Pritt stick, stick it down, and then do a little handwritten label to say what might be in the jar. You might fill it with sweets. And if you're not confident with handwriting, go on the internet, you can find templates, then you can copy it. But yeah, keep a lookout for nice jars, nice tins, nice baskets. In the tin, you know, you can fill a tin with lovely, you know, a tin, you could just fill it with some homemade biscuits. How lovely, that's a lovely present. So they get the biscuits to eat, and that's a really lovely thing, you've made it yourself. But then they get to keep the tin. So it's a lovely tin, and they can put seeds in it later on if they're a gardener. If they're not a gardener, if they're a sewer, they can put all their bobbins and bits and pieces. And that's another thing to think about with things like tins, baskets and jars, is you can fill those things with relatively cheap items. So a jar, for example, I'm thinking of someone in particular, I've just had an idea for someone for Christmas this year, like nostalgia sweets. Now, this is going to only make sense to people in the UK. Sorry, it's just something, big gust of wind came through. People in the UK, but we'll all remember they were 2 a penny, in other words, half p each, 2 a penny, fruit salads or blackjacks. Blackjacks, I couldn't stand them, but I know someone who really, really, really loves them. So if I can track down some blackjacks to put in a jar, you know, maybe it'll end up costing me 3, 4, 5 quid. But that person who gets it is going to be like, oh, a jar full of blackjacks. So think about that. Think about these pretty containers that you can fill with things. There was one I did for my sister one year. It was a really pretty tin. She does some baking. I was going to say not masses. She actually does do quite a bit of baking. It was a really lovely old cake tin, but pretty. Didn't cost a lot. So I bought the cake tin, and then I filled it with all sorts of little bits of vintage haberdashery and bits and bobs and bits of fabric, and as part of the present I gave her a book, and the book it was like a sewing book, but it was specifically about sewing and making things with scraps. So it's like a perfect combo. Didn't cost a fortune, but it was one of those presents you can just keep going back and back and back to that tin to find new things, or not new things, but to find, oh, that's cool, oh, how am I going to use that? And then the book for inspiration. So yeah, keep an eye out. I should have done this in January, shouldn't I? I should have said this right back in January. Keep an eye out for bargain presents in charity shops. Keep an eye out for jars, tins, baskets, what have you. And if you, like I said, if you're good at cooking, make a hamper. You know, how much would a hamper from Fortnum's and Mason's cost? I've got no idea. A fortune. But you could do your own hamper. However, what I would say in all of this is, hang on a tick. If you're a rubbish cook and you make rank jam and rank pickle and rank tomato sauce, please don't gift that. Don't gift someone something that is rubbish. You know, you're better off just going down the supermarket. And you see, that's the other thing you can do. If you're not a cook and you want to do a hamper, go to your local shops, because these hampers that you see on sale for Christmas costing 50, 60 quid for a little one, the big part of what you're paying for is that someone else has done it. But you could go to your local supermarket and buy some nice crackers, some nice cheese, a nice pickle, whatever it is, for a fraction of the price. Find your second-hand basket, even if you buy some straw to put in there to make it look like one of those Gigi hampers, do it for a third of the price. So if you're no good at cooking, don't give a gift of jam that's disgusting. Likewise with things like knitting and sewing, a homemade gift is always beautiful. For my sister, I made some bunting for her. She has a summer house in the garden, but she's got it and I don't. I used some of my favourite bits of Liberty fabric and another designer. It was gorgeous. The reason it was such an amazing gift is because I really, really, really wanted it for myself, but I gave it to her. And it was so lovely back on the beginning of June when it was Platinum Jubilee. She sent me a picture. She put it up in the summer house because she was hosting that weekend for a few folk. Now, that was a nice gift because it was beautifully made. But if you can't sew, if you're a rubbish sewer, don't make a sewn gift for someone. It's like the knitting. It reminds me of, is it The Good Life? It was The Good Life, wasn't it? When Barbara, bless her, who couldn't knit, knitted knitted a jumper for Tom. One sleeve was here, the other sleeve was down here, and she dyed it with a nettle juice. So it was horrible. Bless her. If you are handy, if you are skilled in making something, yes, gift that. But don't give someone a gift that's rubbish. It's better to say, you know what, I can't actually do it. The other thing to think about is maybe your skills aren't in sewing, knitting, cooking, whatever it is, but maybe you have other skills. Maybe you're a plumber. Maybe you've got good plumbing skills. So maybe a Christmas gift to one of your friends is a voucher for, 4 hours of your plumbing services, to say, you know what, I mean, that's a weird one, isn't it? Because as a friend, you would probably do that anyway. But I do think vouchers are quite a nice gift to someone. If you've got no money, but you can give someone your time, so you can, maybe a babysitting voucher, a cooking voucher if you can cook. One of the best presents I've had this year, I mean, obviously I've just had my birthday, had Christmas, but one of the most special, beautiful presents I had this year was it was towards the end of February into the beginning of March. I'd been in hospital. I was really struggling. I had no energy, and also I think emotionally I was struggling because I was starting to get stressed about my year wasn't going well, and worrying that if I pushed it and tried to do stuff that it would set me back, and I was in a bit of a mess, honestly, physically and mentally. And then Richard and Paul came over for the day, and this is something we do. And now normally when they come over for the day, I'd spend a whole day the day before cleaning, get it spotless, because Richard is a really good cleaner. But I'd also cook. I'd make stuff, what have you. And, they got in touch saying, we really want to see you, want to come over, make sure you're okay. And I was like, oh, I can't do it, I can't clean, I can't. And they're like, firstly, we're friends, we're going to ignore any cleaning issues, we don't care. Secondly, we'll cook, don't worry about it. So they came over and they arrived with a lunch that they prepared at home. We had obviously they came and heated it up on the stove, and we had a blackberry and apple crumble that went in the cooker, and custard, and so they'd organised everything. So the meal, I didn't have to get up off the sofa and come into the kitchen once. So this beautiful meal was brought here, heated up, prepared, brought to me. I ate it, it was gorgeous. All the washing up was done. I didn't even have to wash up and put away. Not only that, they also came with bags of fruit, loads of fruit for me, some cheeses. Paul had baked little baps for me. They put them in the freezer, have it when you need it. Richard had baked some shortbread biscuits for me. They go in the cupboard whenever you I wasn't up to cooking, so it was all nibbly stuff. I'm going to say it, hands down, it's one of the best presents I've ever had. Was them coming over and just taking control. They've cooked for me, they've washed up for me, they've stocked my fridge, my freezer, the lot. So that's what I mean about the voucher system. Some people may balk and think, oh, it's not a very good present. But if you give someone a voucher to say, you know, a full day of babysitting, or a voucher to cook a meal, brackets including washing up, actually, that's my best kind of present at the moment. Come and cook for me and wash up. So it doesn't need to be something that you spend either any money on, it could just be time, or you spend a little bit of money on as in ingredients for cooking. But yeah, what a gorgeous gift. Think outside of the box. Another thing I was just thinking of, I realise I've been going on and you probably get the gist. Back to the thing with the tins or the jars, and it sort of reminds me of something I did for my sister's birthday a few years ago, is like a memory gift. So you would have to, this would be for a person that you know really well and you've probably known for a long time, and that maybe you've got correspondence, photographs, but you could put a little tin together that includes, you know, maybe you, and this is what I mean, you might want to make copies to either keep for yourself or give them the copy. But if you've got a really good girlfriend or, you know, boyfriend that you've known for years, and over the years you've sent each other silly postcards. I mean, I've got a whole box like this for one particular friend. We've exchanged silly postcards over the years, letters. I've got photos. You know the photos you do in the photo booth, the strip of 4 pictures. Maybe the gift could be a collection of those things. So, especially if that person has sent you the letter, they'll have forgotten what they wrote when you were 16 and in the full flush of puberty and boys and madness, and all that gossip. Yeah, maybe photocopy that letter that you still have, that postcard. The thing with photos is you can take them to, I was going to say the chemist, it's not the chemist anymore, is it? You know, the photo shops in the UK, it's Snappy Snaps. They can do a copy, so you could put together a little tin, a little memory tin of stuff that you were getting up to when you were 16. I don't think I want to know. I mean, yeah, I do. I know exactly what I was doing when I was 16. But I think that's a really cute idea too. And for my sister, what I did a couple of years ago was, it was after Dad had died, and we got hold of photographs of his that we'd never seen before, and there were loads of slides. So that got quite expensive, getting the slides made into photographs, but it was worth it. So I had all these photographs made up, bought a beautiful album, a proper old-fashioned, you know, where the pages are card and there's tissue paper over each page, and I mounted the photos with old-fashioned photo corner mounts. God, they've disappeared as well, haven't they? And I think that's the other thing, in this day and age where we're all having our photos in our phones or on our computers, to have physical photos is really lovely. Anyway, so I made this album for her of, it was mostly sort of childhood, 16 and up to 20, but it came right up to date. Beautiful. I cried every page I stuck down. It made me cry. It was so sweet. So that's another idea, is doing something with memories, maybe getting photographs copied, even a photograph copied and put in a frame. Again, go to the charity shops and look at frames. You can, honestly, we can give really beautiful, meaningful gifts to our friends and our families, and they don't need to cost a lot of money. They cost a lot of time and thought, and that's the best kind of gift. Let's stop buying tact that none of us want, and that we end up taking to the charity shops next week after Christmas or after birthdays. And then the final thought, I mean, I had loads more thoughts, I've got a gazillion notes here. The final thought on this is gift wrapping. Gift wrapping for the frugal girl. So, there is so many things you can do without going to the shop and buying a roll of wrapping paper. Wrapping paper ain't cheap. For example, you might have young kids yourself or young grandkids or neighbours with them. Do your neighbour kids get comics? Do they read comics? Do they chuck the comics out and they go into the recycling? I love comics as wrapping paper. Brilliant. And especially for people like my age and older, it's a nice memory jog, isn't it, to when we were reading the Beano as we were kids. I was a Beano girl. I also used to read Twinkle. Twinkle was the comic I really loved when I was 3. I think I learnt to read with Twinkle. So it went Twinkle, Beano, Jackie, smash hits, Cosmo and Vogue. But yeah, things like Vogue, an old copy of Vogue, if your neighbours are the kind of people who buy magazines, Vogue, Cosmo, whatever, or their kids have comics, I'm saying the neighbours' kids, assuming they're not things in your house, just say to them, do you mind if can you spare me a couple of old comics, wrap up with comics. Brilliant, colourful, fun, fab. When you're doing your charity shop hauls for tins and photo frames and all that kind of stuff, if they've got a haberdashery section, if they've got some bits of ribbon, great. Present wrapped in comics, big ribbon around it. The ribbon the gift receiver can use again. And that's the other thing, is boxes. Look out in either recycling from the shops in your area or other people's recycling, a little box to put your thing in, so that when it's wrapped up, it's a nice, perfect little square with the perfect bow. It's gorgeous and cute. They don't know what they're going to get. It's in a box. Lovely. So yeah, comics. The other thing you can do, and I did it a few Christmases ago, was plain brown paper, cheap as chips, and I had so much fun doing it. It was glorious fun. Something I haven't done for probably 45 years. Potato cuts. I did potato cuts. I don't know what you call it in the rest of the world, potato stamping. But anyway, you cut a potato in half and you cut a shape in the potato and you cut all the other stuff away. So you've got half a potato with maybe a Christmas tree shape on it or a snowman shape or whatever it is. And then you know, obviously you dip it in your paint and you go splat, 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 splat across your paper. So there was a Christmas when I did all my own Christmas wrap with potato cuts. So I had sheets and sheets of brown paper over the floor because they have to dry. With some were green Christmas trees, another one was like a red kind of bauble shape, and you know, another one was a robin. It was unrecognisable. It looked like vomit, but it was great fun. And literally every single recipient said, "Oh my God, I love your. Is this a potato cut on the gift wrap? Oh, I love it. Oh, I haven't done potato cuts for years." My little potato cut gift wrap made all my friends get excited about the prospect of doing a potato cut that very afternoon. Never mind that the kids are off at the grandparents', I'm going to do a potato cut. So yeah, get inventive. And of course the other thing to think about is, especially for a stitcher, wrapping a present in a fat quarter of lovely fabric. So obviously no sellotape, so you could wrap it, you could use a little safety pin to hold it in place or a ribbon to hold it in place. So then the person who's receiving the gift, they have their lovely gift inside, but they also have a lovely fat quarter to play with and some ribbon and another safety pin to put in their stash. You know what it all boils down to is thinking outside the box, being playful, being creative, being imaginative, but going back having that conversation in the first place with people to say, and there's no shame in it, and I think that's probably what a lot of us suffer from, is like, oh God, I'll be ashamed to admit I can't afford Christmas presents. Let's take all that shame nonsense away and say, you know what, guys, and you know what, if you do feel embarrassed about the money aspect of it and you feel a bit churlish about that, take that away and just say to your friends, you know what, I'm trying to live a more sustainable and green life. Because they can't argue with that, and they can't shame you for that. Besides, any friends who would ever argue with you and try and shame you, they're not friends anyway. But yeah, maybe that's the approach you could take, is to say, I'm trying to have a more sustainable life. I'm trying to teach the kids some lessons here, or the grandkids some lessons here. This is what I'm planning, you know, going forward in terms of Christmas and gifts in general. I really hope you can get on board with me, but if you can't, just to let you know, you're getting a jar of pickle for Christmas. I mean, don't actually say that last bit, but yeah, get people on board with what you're doing, let them know what you're doing, let them know how you're trying to live and why it's important to you, and then, you know, keep your eyes open when you're out and about, keep the penny jar going, and like I said, just get creative and have fun. We can do this for a lot less money and a lot less impact on the environment, and at the same time bring joy to each other. We can have joy producing it, and we can have joy giving it, and they can have joy receiving it, and then we get joy watching their face having the joy when they're receiving it. Yay! Right, okay, that's enough. So I was mentioning in the previous video, things are a bit at the moment here, so I think I may not see you for a few days, that's fine. I might not see you till the end of the month, we'll have a catch up. I might do a little catch up in the garden before then, nothing massive, but you know what, we'll see. Never mind all that. Please, in the meantime, until I see you next, look after yourselves, take care, look after each other, be well, be happy, be creative, let your inner child out with the potato cut. I reckon one or two of you might go to the kitchen now, grab a potato and do a potato cut. It's such a visceral pleasure. And we forget, don't we? We forget those pleasures, all those things when we're a kid that are just so happy making. So simple, but they're happy making. Yeah. Go off. Go and spend the rest of the afternoon or evening being a kid. Make a mud pie. Go and jump in a puddle. There's no puddles. Make a mud pie or do a potato cut. Love it. See you whenever. Until then, yes. Lots of love. Take care. Cheerio.